to Driving Success, the award-winning Fleet Advantage podcast, a show where we bring you expert insights in the latest trends in fleet management and transportation. I'm your host, Tracy Derival, and you're tuning into the final episode of our Summer of Safety micro-series. This year, we've highlighted critical safety initiatives in the transportation industry, and now we're wrapping things on up with CVSA's Brake Safety Week, which is happening from August 24th through the 30th. Joining us again is Matt Wiedmeyer, who is the Director of Fleet Operations and Maintenance here at Fleet Advantage. He was a key voice in last year's series, and we're excited to have him back. Let's start the episode. Hey, Matt, thank you for coming back on the podcast to help us close out this year's Summer of Safety series. Now, before we dive in, can you briefly reintroduce yourself and share a little bit about your role here at FA and also your background within the transportation industry?
Sure, Tracy. Thanks for having me back. Director of Fleet Operations here at Fleet Advantage. Been here 5 years now. Role focuses on fleet services, data analytics, keeping the fleet running smooth, maximum efficiency, ensuring safety, compliance, and performance across the board. Love helping the fleets, keeping their fleets running strong, delivering long-term results. I've been in the fleet transportation maintenance world for about 18 years. A little longer than that, maybe, working across repair and maintenance as well as planning, compliance, and operational strategy.
All right. Now, just to start us off, can you give us a refresher on what is CVSA's Brake Safety Week and also what are the main goals behind this campaign?
So everybody loves an acronym or two. It's easier for everyone to remember, but CVSA is for Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance. Their main purpose is to reduce the number of highway crashes, educate drivers in their fleets, and enforce the safety regulations by identifying and removing unsafe vehicles off the road. And this is through identification of poor brake maintenance and faulty and poorly maintained brake systems.
Right. So, with that being said, what are some of the most common brake related violations that inspectors tend to find during this week? And how do those violations affect vehicle safety and operational performance?
Just a few of them are, honestly, it's out of adjustment, worn or cracked linings, air leaks, surprisingly, damaged and contaminated brake drums and rotors. Those are just a few that they will come across during their inspections throughout this week.
Speaking on drums and rotors, with this year's focus being on those two things, what are some of the key pre and post trip inspection practices that drivers and maintenance teams should prioritize to avoid violations?
Drivers overlook this all the time, Tracy. Very rarely do they really take a look at their drums and their rotors, but they need to. They need to be looking at cracks, heat spots, any signs of grooves. It's harder with drums. They don't want to get in and sneak their head around the tire and look at the drums. A little easier with rotors because you can kind of look through and see, but they need to be looking at those things. They need to be looking at grease and oil contamination from leaking wheel seals or over greasing of other parts where it may have fallen onto the drum or the rotor. And then on the maintenance side, during PMs, those guys are critical to seeing what's actually going on with the brake system by visually getting in there and looking at it once they have a tire off and checking for those things of scoring, cracking, unusual heat, and then building on these daily checks and routines, combining both the driver writing up on his daily vehicle inspection report and talking to the maintenance team and saying, hey, I've got some unusual vibrations. Can you check it out? Just those small things that they communicate together help in keeping the braking system in good order for a transportation division.
Okay. Now, if I could just piggyback on last year's initiative with CVSA conducting a unannounced brake safety inspections and the results kind of being pretty eye-opening, do you think that those findings still reflect onto challenges today? And what lessons do you think that fleets can take into this year's brake safety week?
Last year's findings from the previous year's findings still reflect challenges in the industry. It's pretty eye-opening that brakes are honestly that one thing that doesn't get the attention that it should. Lots of vehicles were placed out of service for brake-related violations. Anything from, slack adjusters being misadjusted or not adjusted at all, to poor brake pads and shoe linings. So this tells us all the things that there's still a gap between maintenance programs and what's going on day to day. And unfortunately, these things only get addressed once a year when brake safety week comes around. And it's not something that needs to be done just once a year, Tracy. It needs to be done every day, every week, 52 weeks a year for these fleets to be ready for brake safety week. You'll end up with a lower cost of ownership in your maintenance program. The data analytics will tell you if you maintain your equipment in top condition, your cost per mile for brakes will go down.
And this is the reason why we feel like it's very important to keep driving this message on home. So with this being our second time covering this topic, is there anything new or important this year that you think that our audience should keep in mind as they prepare for Brake Safety Week?
Yeah, with the shift to drums and rotors, again, as I talked about earlier, they don't get the attention that they should. They are critical to the stopping power of a 18-wheeler, if you want to call it that. But they are critical. If they are in poor condition, your stopping performance goes way down and the cost to replace them goes way, way up. Not only will the cost to replace those components go way up, but if you have an accident, then your cost even goes up more substantially with an accident. And my advice is this is an opportunity to not only refresh your driver's training, but double your maintenance intervals. These are the things that need to be looked at on a regular basis, a daily basis. The goal isn't to just pass the inspection. We need to make sure that the fleet's out there keeping safe, keeping efficient, and ready for good brake safety every day of the year. So something that we have just developed for our customers is the Trust Index, the Truck Reliability and Usage Safety Tracker. It's a great tool for our customers. It's benchmarking tool based on CSA. It's for their safety scores. It's for their CSA scores. And it compares them against their same peers in their vertical, whether it's a grocery vertical or a fuel tank vertical or that type of a thing. But what it does is it gives them an idea of where they're at. And this time, when we looked at it just before Brake Safety Week, we found that 33% of the violations in CSA happen to be brake related. That's a pretty big chunk of brake violations. I would love for our customers to be using Trust and requesting this and seeing where they're at going forward. I think it's a great tool to see where their fleet is at and how I can help them lower their violations, get their CSA score overall in a better place. Not everybody's perfect. We know this. We all have some room to work on, and I think the Trust Index will help them get to a better place.
And with that, Matt, we just want to say thank you again for joining us today and sharing your expertise. It's always a pleasure having you on the podcast and your continued support in promoting fleet safety and sharing your education across the industry.
Thanks, Tracy. And again, safe brakes do not happen by chance. They happen by choice every single day of the year.
And that's a wrap on this year's Summer of Safety series. It's been another great series of insights, tips, and practical guidance to help fleet professionals prioritize driver safety and operational compliance. To catch our entire Summer of Safety series, please visit our YouTube channel for the videos. And for our listeners, episodes 11 through 13 are available on your favorite podcast platforms, such as Spotify, Apple, and iHeartRadio. If you enjoyed today's show, please share, like, and leave a review. And don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms such as LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and X. And until next time, let's continue to drive solutions together.